Do you know the three most important elements in achieving optimal wellness and health? Do you know these are steps that you can take right now in your own home, and they're essentially free? Well, today's conversation with physical therapist Stephanie Lowery will fill you in on all these details. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tenpenny Files. I'm your host, Dr. Sherri Tenpenny. If it matters to your future, your freedom, or your health, we talk about it here. We have a new topic every single day, so come back daily and you can learn more and about these amazing authors who've written these incredible books. And since I've started this podcast, I have been introduced to people and I've read more books in the last 7 months than I've read probably collectively in my entire rest of my life. We talk about politics and history and travel. We talk about health policy. We talk about food, farming, and fitness, archaeology. We cover a lot. And at least once a week, I have a conversation with a pastor or a pastor and an author who write about biblical faith, about biblical principles and faith. So join me here every day, Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern on the Tenpenny Files, or in the evenings. We post these the same day at 8 p.m. on our social media places of Instagram, X, and Rumble, and now we even have a YouTube channel where you can find all of these wonderful podcasts. But join us here every day live at 3 p.m. Eastern on the Tenpenny Files, where we hear from voices who've often been ignored, silenced, or censored. Before we begin today's episode, I want to invite everybody to become a Tenpenny Prime member. Your monthly membership is what supports us and allows us to do the work that we do. Go to primembership.drtenpenny.com to find out more and hopefully become a Prime member. One last thing, welcome to everyone who joins us here regularly. We're so glad you're here. And for the new people who've just found our show, we're grateful you're here too. So now let's get started. Today's conversation is with physical therapist and owner of Active PT Inc., Stephanie Lowery, to talk about her health curriculum centered around her book, Become the Whole Healthy You. Stephanie, welcome to the Tenpenny Files. I'm so glad you're here. And, we're almost neighbors.
We are almost neighbors. Thank you for having me, Dr. T.
You have divided your book and your curriculum into three sections: sleep, movement, and nutrition. Do you think each of these are equally important, or would you say one of them is more important than others?
They're equally important, and maybe we think about nutrition and exercise more than sleep. And there's also many components to movement. So they're all equally component or equally important, but each component builds on each other. It really is a cycle. It's just this journey going around and around.
Sleep is, I listen to Gary Brecka's conversations pretty regularly. And I was at a conference a while ago, and where he was a keynote speaker, and he so emphasizes sleep. He said, if you can't get sleep right, even if you're eating right, it doesn't really matter. And that movement needs to be non-negotiable, that you need to exercise and move your body every single day. Would you agree with that philosophy?
I agree with that because how you move during the day affects how you sleep, and you need deep quality restorative sleep at night to move the next day. So I agree with that.
Most people think about nutrition as just food, but people don't. I think that most of the people, particularly in my audience, don't eat much fast food, don't eat much processed food, and they say they have a good diet, but maybe they really don't, because nutrition is more than just what we eat. It also involves our microbiome and epigenetics. Could you elaborate on those a bit?
So, epigenetics, in the most simplest terms, is your lifestyle choices. So, you get your genes from your mom and dad. So, that's your DNA, that's what you're born with. But all your lifestyle choices are your epigenes. So, that's how the genes become expressed. So, you have a lot of choices to make every day: how much sleep you're going to get, are you going to move, what are you going to eat, how late are you going to eat at night. So, that's what epigenetics is, your lifestyle choices. And then your microbiome is, and that's what you asked about second, right?
Mhm.
And it actually in the book is there's one paragraph, and the paragraph is one sentence, and it's my favorite. in the whole book. Your microbiome is the nature around you living inside you.
Oh, wow, that's good.
And I really did. I wanted to keep it short because I do think that sentence says so much. And where some of us, probably not your audience, is so quick to use hand sanitizers and stay so clean. It's not really being clean, it's about interacting with nature. And you really need to be in nature to have a healthy, strong microbiome.
That sentence was really great. Say it again.
Yeah, your microbiome is the nature around you living inside you.
You know, it's really true because we have multiple different microbiomes in our body. We have one in our gut that I think most people are familiar with, but we also have one on our skin. We have one in our brain. We have one in our lungs. Um, can you elaborate a little bit on what is the best care for all these different microbiomes in our body?
For all the different microbiomes in our body would probably be limit toxins. And you're not going to get rid of toxins. I mean, they're always, we have mechanisms within ourselves to deal with toxins. It's just the toxic overload. And again, it goes back to choices. So we do think of toxins, like you said, processed food. Well, that's a huge toxin. And the air quality, the water quality, the soil quality, those are all toxins. But maybe people don't think about how much our thoughts could be toxins. And I did elaborate quite a bit on that in the movement section because it's written for teenagers. Negative self-talk can be so destructive, and it's just a piece of it. If you have a bad self-image, that can destroy your microbiome in your gut.
You know, your book, Becoming the Whole Health You, was really directed, as you said, towards teenagers, even though it's a great manual for everybody of all ages. But it's written to the teens, to appeal to teenagers. Why were you drawn to write a book for teenagers and turn it into a health curriculum for homeschoolers and even public schools?
Right, right. So I did have an, if I thought if I ever wrote a book, it would be for teenagers because as a physical therapist, when I work with patients, I mean, it's the obvious is we're going to talk about exercise. But I never dismiss posture and breathing as the foundation to all movement. If you have an injury, you have to have deep sleep to heal on a cellular level. So if somebody's waking up multiple times a night to go to the bathroom, I'm able to educate them on bladder training. I speak to bowel and bladder in the book, but we just need all these components. And what patients often told me is, I wish I knew this when I was younger. So that's why
Mm.
I had the idea. I mean, the things I learned, I wish I knew them when I was a teenager. I would have made better choices. Um, and so I started saying, I'm going to write a book someday. And patients would agree. They said, yeah, write it for teenagers, but I want a copy too.
Yeah. So I think that's really important what you said about posture, because teenagers, particularly teenage girls, tend to round their shoulders either because they don't want to appear so tall, or maybe they're developing breast buds and they really are kind of embarrassed by that, or these big, heavy book bags that kids carry around on their backs. Talk about that a little bit in terms of addressing teenagers.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, and also that slumped posture because they're stuck in their phone. So a lot of our body just becomes this slouched C shape. And a natural spine actually has an S curve. You have an inward curve in your low back and your neck, and then it bows the other direction in your mid back. So in the book, I talk about the tragus measure, and the tragus is this little ear flap here. And so teens often can do this. They might not typically stand and sit real tall, but when you stand against a wall and the back of your head touches the wall without looking up, you just take a ruler or tape measure from your tragus, the inner ear flap, to the wall, and it should be a 4.5 inch measure. And that's great, but we should never lose that in life. Getting older doesn't mean you develop this forward head. You just have to retract against the wall and you keep this upright posture. And if you develop these good habits as a teen, they stay with you through life. But as far as the heavy backpack, um, that it's always the tiniest girls with the heaviest backpack. And maybe the big burly guys, they aren't holding the book. But yeah, some of that is just the necessity of going to and from school. But if you're not even aware of posture, you're never going to be able to change it.
You know, I've often advocated for teenagers in my practice over the years that have those that seems as though the books were getting bigger and they had more and more homework. And so some of those backpacks may have been, 35, 40 pounds or more on these kids. And I often advocated for them to get like a little trolley that
Yeah.
they've got those things now that your backpack hooks onto them so that you can pull them as opposed to carry them on your load. Is that something you work with kids about?
Yeah, that's a great idea. It doesn't come up a lot in my practice, but I have recommended people use the trolley for sure.
Yeah, and adults too. Because sometimes those backpacks can be heavier than your carry-on luggage.
Right. I feel like I do see adults use them more
Yeah.
because some of the trolleys have a nice clip on them. And so your laptop stays separate than the other pieces of either IT equipment. But no, for sure. I mean, and it's all about thinking ahead because you shouldn't wait until you have a problem to try to figure it out. You try to prevent it in the first place.
For sure. How does social media adversely affect a teenager's ability to reflect on how they feel and what they look like and in their body?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that it's very flat and it's just so one dimensional. They become isolated. And in the book, I talk about at the very beginning self-reflection. And we might be moving away from that in the teenage years. I mean, I hope not. But self-reflection is just being quiet, sitting in silence with yourself. And that could be still alone in your bedroom or out in nature. And when you're out in nature, you just revitalize all your senses. Everything you see, hear, smell, and touch can really help calm your body. And if you're out in nature and bring a friend, then there's this whole conversation piece because conversations shouldn't be texting somebody, especially if they're sitting right next to you. We just got to, right? We got to engage in discussions and dialogues.
I think we've all seen those pictures of like four kids that there's in a restaurant sitting at a booth, and all four of them are sitting there on their phones,
Right, right.
texting each other. And we've seen those sitcoms where two teenagers are sitting on the couch with laptops in their lap, and they're texting each other, on their laptop as opposed to talking to each other. And I think that that's become a real problem in our society. I was talking to a friend of mine last week who's got a son that's a junior in high school. And he came home one night after school and he said, Mom, none of the boys are dating any girls. Nobody's dating. I think there's a national statistic about that now that, interaction between boys and girls and the things that we used to do to each other, like, the girls used to chase the boys and the boys used to pull your ponytail and do all that sort of thing, just doesn't happen anymore. And we're losing our ability to communicate. How does that affect on our overall health by just being so isolated and not communicating and doing things that kids normally should do?
Right, because the thing normal kids do is make mistakes, and you have to know what to do and how to do it, and that's overwhelming. But if you don't understand the whys and this cause effect relationship with being with other people, then it just is shutting down, first of all, your learning. And then if you haven't learned anything socially, I mean, then what are you going to think about? And that is that is a problem because there's a lot to conversation with words, but there's so much with body language. And if you're not around others, you're not picking up on their body language. And that is a form of energy. And you should be energized and enthusiastic to be around other people. But it's just kind of funneling into this screen is my socialization, and this screen is the way I communicate. And at the end of the day, I think it really is cutting down on creativity, curiosity, learning, and just being okay to make mistakes socially and feeling awkward. It's okay to feel awkward, but they're not even doing hard things like that.
You know, I do a podcast on Thursday night called Critically Thinking with Dr. T and Dr. P.
Yeah.
And Dr. Pilevsky is a pediatrician, and he's constantly saying things to parents in the office like, let them fail. Don't protect them. If it's like a 2-year-old, let him fall down. He has to learn how to fall down and get up. Or teenagers, like, let them fail, or take the phone away from them and only allow them to use it a certain number of minutes or maybe 2 hours a day, and that's it. This lack of socialization and going back and forth is really, really a big deal. Do you talk about that a lot in your book?
I do, and it is a big deal. I really like critically thinking with Dr. P and Dr.
Oh,
P.
thank you.
It's excellent, and because it's just casual and it's not scripted, obviously, and that conversation alone makes you think. Your conversations make families have these dialogues that might not have come to be. And it all started from a screen, right? I can be watching you guys on a screen, but when you carry it over and have conversation with your family and friends, I mean, sometimes it just stops at the screen and it shouldn't. And I do talk about that in the book. I'm actually going to be at Moving Mountains Health Summit, and Dr. P is the speaker there. It's in October in Illinois. And it's going to be my first conference that I'm going to as a vendor. So I'll have the book and talk about the curriculum there.
Well, tell us a little bit about the curriculum. How did this book, did the curriculum come to be and then a book, or did you do the book and then the curriculum? Tell
Right,
us a
right.
little bit how that all came about.
Okay. No, it was the book first. So my beginnings in a nutshell took many, many years. So I'll try to say it in a few sentences. But as a physical therapist, I mean, the obvious is I talk about exercise, but um, and I do think I mentioned to you already, I would just say things about sleep and nutrition. If you have an injury, you really have to have good nutrition on the healing aspect of it. And when the patient said, you really need to write a book, and I thought about it, yeah, we need good habits first and foremost. So, in writing the book for the teenagers, that's all I thought it was going to be. And I figured my patient population is mostly adults. So in the evening, I could have some small groups with teenagers and their parents. I mean, even the dedication of my book, it's dedicated to all teenagers and adults who were once teenagers, because we do need this information. Um, and so the book was finished, and then COVID happened and the world shut down. So I never had my small discussions in the evening at my office. I mean, that's what I started off. That was my plan. And a few years went by, and then and I had test readers back in the day, and they commented that nutrition was disjointed and a little too sciencey. So I did rewrite nutrition, and it's basic. It's processed food is fake food, and real food is nutrient rich. And it talks about epigenetics, your microbiome, and the energy and strength of the mitochondria. So, I mean, there is science in there, but the basic repetition is you really have to eat real food. And so my sister did the illustrations to break up the text, and she was helping me edit it. And she's the one that said, this is really a health curriculum. And I thought, wow, that is a great idea. So the book was done, and then I went back and wrote a teacher's guide. And I have to tell you, the hardest part about writing the book is stopping, because
Mhm.
at some point you just, I,
Gotta stop.
yeah,
I
and
get it.
okay. I didn't know that would be the hardest part. I did
Wow.
the first book, and I'm finishing my edits. I think in a couple weeks the edits will be done. But the benefit of the teacher's guide is it's digital, so that can be updated. When the teacher or parent uses the teacher's guide, they could add in their own resources. So I like the aspect of the curriculum, and I do have a very, very robust teacher's guide. And that idea just came about within this past year. So I really have to figure out first I'm going to network with homeschoolers. And because you have such a large audience, I'll be giving my website at the end.
We'll
Anybody,
give it right now
oh, sure.
and then we'll give it again at the end.
Oh, okay, thanks. BecomeWholeyou.com.
Become whole, WHOLE, becomewholeyou.com, YOU.
Correct.
Okay, okay, great.
So if people want to reach out to me, I can supply them with the books and the digital teacher's guide because it would be good to have. I have homeschool or I have friends that homeschool their children, but they're not in a larger co-op. And like you said, Sherri, I would love it to be national reading. Why not be in the public schools? Yeah.
Well, why not?
Why not?
Is there a track or a pathway that people engage in when they want to get like I've talked to people that have written really good books on history that should be in public schools, and now you've got this health book, and that is there a path that you need to go through to get something approved for a public school system?
I believe that is state by state level
Mm.
because so the reading level of this book is age 13. I was striving for it to be a sixth grade reading level, but it's age 13, which is still appropriate. It's very appropriate. And so I thought ninth grade health curriculum was a national standard, and it's not. It's state by
Wow.
state. Yeah. But every state has a standard. It's just could be different state by state. Yeah.
So you and I both live here in Ohio. Have you approached the Ohio legislature or the Ohio Board of Education or anything like that as a first step here to start in your own backyard?
Not yet, but I will. I mean, first I had to stop writing the book, just stop. And then the digital teacher's guide, I'm just tweaking a little more of that. So really my target date is by August 1st to really be networking with homeschoolers, and I can approach Ohio legislature and anywhere. I'll fly anywhere and talk to any state.
Well, Ohio Board of Health, would be a good place to start, because I mean, Columbus isn't that far away. And so you can, and people need to do things in their own backyard. We're always thinking about over there somewhere. And, like we don't think about what's going on in our own backyard. But I think that's really, really good. And would you see this curriculum being is it a multi-year curriculum, or is it just, like you said, for ninth graders? Or how did you build out the curriculum?
It's a semester. So it's 15 weeks of structured coursework, and there's quizzes in the teacher's guide. Mhm.
Very cool.
Mhm.
Are you doing any, short of getting into the bigger school systems like homeschooling and things like that, are you doing any like small groups where you are now?
Yes, I have it in three small groups.
Well,
So,
tell us about it. I feel like I'm like pulling information out of you. Just
oh,
give
okay.
it.
Yeah, I guess because it, I just for so many years have been thinking about a book and then writing a book, and at some point you have to do it.
Right.
So, so the three small groups I have right now are people I personally know. Their children are homeschooled. One of them has tutors coming into the house, so that's who's testing it for me. And I also had test readers prior to that, just because I mean I'm alone writing this book, and my sister was actually really good because she doesn't have the science background, so she was able to read it and reiterate to me what she was understanding, and so I think that simplified the text. But yeah, as far as pulling things out of me, maybe I could be a guest again in 6 months and tell you all my happenings. But I don't have, I haven't made a large mass print of the book yet. I do small batches because I prefer to read it on paper. It's right here.
Yeah,
It,
hold it up because the part about that book, it's spiral bound.
it's spiral bound because there's journaling pages in it.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
I can see that. That's good. And for
yeah,
those that are listening, there's a lot of white space in there that you can write your own thoughts or write your own
yeah.
things about it. And it is a spiral bound book, so it lays open nicely. And it's really more of an educational manual. I was really impressed when I read through it. I really was. I thought
Yeah.
that the way that you organized it and the material that you put in, particularly geared towards like the teenage mind, is it's very well written. And the illustrations, I think, were really good. I even used some of the illustrations on myself, saying, "Wonder if I can do that. Wonder if I can
Right,
stand up and
right.
do that." So it's
That's right.
even though it's written for teenagers and the curriculum is that way, it's very user friendly for adults, very much so.
It is. And as an adult, maybe it's a great reminder. As
Yeah.
a teenage, it's a great foundation to set habits. And we can always change. We can, there's the start, stop, continue method. So you can start a new habit. You can stop a bad habit. You can give yourself credit for the habits you're already doing. So I wouldn't say it's a self-help book. I would say it's a thinker's book, and always stay curious. Yeah, there's so much to learn.
There's so much to learn, and I like what you said about as a refresher, because a lot of stuff we know, we just don't do. And so by reading it, it reminds you you need to do these things that you talked about. So that's really, really good.
Yeah, and the other thing is we aren't just so I do like the bio individuality. That's a repetitive theme within the book. So what's good for you to eat is not going to be good for me to eat. What time you go to bed might not be the same time I go to bed, but there's a foundation to that. And within the individual, we live in a community. And another really nice page in the book, I do like the illustrations too. So you have to think, choose, act for you and your community, because we're living amongst each other and we should help each other out. The energy I give off affects others, and the energy I take in affects me. So, I mean, these are good things to think about.
Absolutely. Well, this is a good place for us to take a short station break and hold that thought because we want to hear from our sponsors for AmericaOutloud.news. America Out Loud Talk Radio plays the Tenpenny Files on the iHeartRadio network Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. If you've missed any of these great conversations, you can find the Tenpenny Files on Spotify, Pandora, Apple, TuneIn, iHeart Virtual Studio, iTunes, and on my platforms at drtenpenny.com, drtenpenny.substack.com. My social media pages are on X, on Rumble, on Instagram, and on YouTube at Busy Dr. T. We have a great message coming up from our sponsors. Listen closely. If it appeals to you, please support our sponsors because they support us, and that's how we continue to do what we do for all of you. So we'll be right back with more from Stephanie Lowery about her book and her curriculum for teenagers centered around her book, Become the Whole Healthy You. We will be right back. My supplement line is called the Opti line, and we've been working with these formulations for many years and have years and years of documented success. Our best sellers are OptiMune, OptiVital Cleanse, and we've got a whole line of supplements that you can look at, the ones that I've hand selected and have used personally with my patients at Tenpenny Integrated Medical Center for almost 30 years. You can find out more by going to supplements.drtenpenny.com, and you get 10% off by using our code DRT10 for every day. But if you sign up for the monthly auto ship, if you're going to be on these supplements for an extended period of time, sign up for that because then you get 15% off. That's supplements.drtenpenny.com. My Chronic Silver is a product that everyone should have in their cabinet. It just helps everything. It helps every infection. It helps with your eyes, with your skin, with bladder infections. I even give it to my dog. He has dry eyes, and I put several drops of the Mycronic Silver in his eyes every day. He blinks and seems to really like it. And there's a cream. It's a gel, actually. They call it a liaison. That's good for any type of skin ailment. You will want to look at all of these products and gather them into your medicine cabinet. Go to mychronicsilver.com and use the affiliate code DRT to get 15% off on your first order. Well, welcome back, everyone. Today's conversation is with Stephanie Lowery about her health curriculum and her book, Become the whole healthy you. Let me tell you just a little bit more about today's guest. Stephanie Lowery received her Bachelor of Science in Physical Therapy from Ohio University and obtained her doctorate in physical therapy from Arcadia University in Pennsylvania. She also holds a diploma of mechanical diagnosis and therapy from the McKenzie Institute and advanced practice certificate in pelvic health. She owns and operates a private outpatient physical therapy in Kirkland, Ohio, just down the road from me. So that's what I said. We're almost neighbors. Stephanie, welcome back to the Tenpenny Files. Such a pleasure having this conversation with you here today.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's very nice.
You know, as a physical therapist, you are deeply trained in the importance of movement for overall health. In your book, Become the Whole Healthy You, you discuss uptraining the parasympathetics. So first, tell us what the parasympathetics are, and what does that mean for overall health?
Yep. So our autonomic nervous system got its name many years ago from scientists who thought it was automatic. And there's two parts. Sympathetic, we actually know as fight or flight. So fight is you're going to stand and defend yourself. Flight is run away to defend yourself, or perhaps freeze. That's where it's overwhelming, your mind shuts down and your body freezes. So that's our sympathetic system. And parasympathetic is the calm, quiet, restorative side. That's where we rest and digest. And when you read about your sympathetic system, it's not healthy to stay in sympathetic overdrive all the time. And there's a term to deregulate sympathetics or downgrade your sympathetics. And that never fully made sense to me as a clinician because I have to teach people about sympathetic. It toggles. So you have your sympathetic and your parasympathetic. They both can't be up at the same time nor down at the same time. They're always toggling. They have a little dance. And so if you're in sympathetic overdrive, they say, well, just deregulate your sympathetics. And it doesn't make sense to me. You have to uptrain parasympathetics. When you uptrain parasympathetics, that's how the sympathetic overdrive gets reduced. And I do go through great lengths in the book to talk about all sorts of uptraining parasympathetics. I actually trademarked it because uptraining parasympathetics isn't, you can't Google that. It's just uptraining the parasympathetic system. But uptraining parasympathetics is breathing. You know, you just sit quietly, inhale, exhale through your nose. So closed mouth breathing. Or you go out in nature and you simply enjoy all the sights and sounds. Or you laugh with a friend. Uptraining parasympathetics doesn't have to be individual. You can laugh with friends. You can go on a walk with a group of people. And uptraining parasympathetics doesn't have to be sitting still. The problem is if we don't uptrain parasympathetics during the day, that is one major factor of why we don't sleep well at night, because sleeping is a parasympathetic function. So,
You know, one of the things that I used to teach people to do when I was still seeing patients to improve their parasympathetics is to lay on the floor on your back and then elevate your legs to 90 degrees at your hip and then rest your legs on a chair so that your feet aren't up in the air like this for people that can see it, but they're at 90 degrees across a chair. And that you lay on your back and then you outstretch your arms to your side, palms up, so that you're laying at 90 degrees and then breathing. And there's something about that position that seems to really bring up the parasympathetics. Why is that? Why does that position make parasympathetics come into play?
right. So that was a great suggestion and very useful because our body, so autonomic nervous system is one body system, but all our body systems overlap. So when you're in that position, you are helping your lymphatic system and your circulatory system and your musculoskeletal system. So, I mean, you got them all. So that's why, and with your hands up, you're anatomically in a very restful position that feeds back into your parasympathetics. So what you just described was actually this continuum of health is a circle. It just keeps going around and around. We're connected to each other in our community. All our body systems are connected to each other within our body. And we're talking about it and it makes sense. But if you never think about it, then you're not appreciating everything your body can do. So that's excellent for your patients. It's excellent for all your listeners. Everybody should do that position.
Well, it's simple. It's sort of like when I started the top of the show. There's things that you can do to improve your health that are essentially free. You know, you just have to have a chair and a floor to lay on the back on your back, and to improve. Then that helps to improve your sleep, helps to improve your digestion, helps to improve your circulation. And so it's something so incredibly simple, but is so powerful on many dynamics to be able to do something like that, that you don't have to, spend a lot of money on a piece of equipment or machinery or get in your car and drive somewhere. It's something that the listeners that you can do right now today at home is go lay on the floor, put your legs up on a chair as at 90 degrees at your pelvis and 90 degrees at your knees, lay on your back with your arms outstretched, palms up, and breathe. Actually, in the breathing is like 3 counts in, hold one, and 4 count exhale. There's a whole bunch of combinations you can do with that, but it's just a matter of slow in, hold, and slow out. Hold, slow in, hold. It's gonna hypnotize me, make me go to sleep. I can't say it anymore.
Right, right, right. And when you hold your breath, um, I really wanted to emphasize up training parasympathetics, but holding your breath is the vagus nerve. I mean, it's just everything's connected and it's so useful.
You also mentioned and you showed that diagram in the book about community. Besides the importance of sleep, nutrition, and movement to becoming the whole health you've advocated for community and as a theme all the way throughout the book. You talk about it. Why is that important?
Because we have to learn that helping others helps ourselves. And I just think it was easier. I don't think it was necessarily better back in the day, but it was very easy to be social. And we know it's not as easy to be social now because you go into retail stores or um, any place, and you can literally have a transaction and the person doesn't look at you. And I don't ever remember that being a thing. And so if we don't have eye contact with each other and we're not aware of what each other's doing, we are minimizing our community. And it is laughable. I mean, it makes you chuckle, but I can tell you 3 situations that happened to me in the last month, and I never had eye contact. That's just very strange to me.
And it used to be many years ago that we would have literal community interaction with the people on our streets. Most houses had front porches, and
Mhm.
people would sit out on their front porch and rock, or swing. They had a swing, and all the kids in the neighborhood would play together. And it was kind of like this whole community. It was like a village to raise a child, right? And everybody played together. And now we don't have front porches; we have backyards. And so we're not interfacing with our communities. And we don't let our kids just go to the park because, oh my
Right.
gosh, somebody might kidnap them or somebody will turn you into CPS for not watching your kids. I mean, when I was growing up, it was like you'd left, especially in summer, you'd leave in the morning on your bike. And the only rule was that you need, to not get into trouble and to be home when the street lights started turning on because that was time for dinner.
Right.
And we don't do that anymore. And that was such an important sense of community. How can we start to re-engage with our local neighbors on a community level?
I think by making the choice to get out there and do it. And that is funny because we all talk about drinking from the garden hose when we were younger.
Yeah, for
And I
real.
have a friend, she laughs. She has about 7 grandchildren, and she says her grandchildren can't even go to the car without their juice box and snacks. I mean, we're all carrying water bottles, which is great. We need to drink water, but yeah, to advocate getting back into community is to put yourself out there. And I still think through churches, people are very into fellowship. Um, it does seem like there's a resurgence for young families to return to church. And I understand why some people would be against organized religion, but church or community sports or a festival. I mean, there's lots of things to just show up for. And like you said, things are free. You can go to all sorts of parks and just to engage. The other thing is with the front porches, I remember that people got busier and busier. And you know how we used to do it? We would shut down the street and have a neighborhood potluck. Like that
Yeah.
used to be a thing. And I don't think people do that anymore.
I don't think so either. I don't think so either. And I think that, it's a lot of it is because of our phones. We've
Mhm.
gotten so addicted. In fact, I read I don't know if it was a story or if it was a study from a while ago that these four families had decided that they were going to go. I guess it was a story. Must have been an article. Maybe it was a Substack that they were going to go camping for a long weekend and they were going to leave their cell phones turned off. And at first, and then when they came home, it was like an extended thing with their teenagers that they had to just pretend they didn't have a phone. And at first, everybody had such anxiety and it was like really, really difficult. But then by the end of whatever this period of time was, they didn't want to turn it on at all because they had learned how to communicate with each other. They'd learned how to play soccer and do things together. And at the end of it, the teenagers were saying, how did we get so wrapped up in that digital thing that we have to carry around all the time? I have a
Right.
friend who's a pastor who said that he's teaching his congregation to detox from their phones. And he said the first step is leave the house, like go to the grocery store or go shopping and don't take your phone.
Right.
And it's anxiety driven because, what's the last thing that you look for before you leave the house? It's like, where's my phone? You got to
Right.
take that with you. And now some people could say, well, that's a security thing, it's a safety thing, but it's really more of an addiction thing, I think. What do you think
It
about
is.
that?
It is an addiction, and it's the dopamine hit. And it comes back to habits and choice because I remember when our kids were younger, we would kind of make it a joke, but we would have the dinner table, no phones, no phones, never a phone in your bedroom for sleep. And then a decade goes by and we just have our phones because it's just connected to us. And EMFs are toxins, so you definitely have to separate it. But maybe the pendulum has swung. I mean, we are addicted to phones. We have instant gratification for anything we want to watch on TV. People might not even know what commercials are because you can navigate away from those. But it's it has to be such sensible um, daily activities that we just engage in are grateful for. And maybe I'm just too optimistic, but I actually think it's going to get better. I really think it's going to get better.
Good. What community projects are you active in?
Within my community, just because I'm trying to raise exposure for the book, I contribute to a children's magazine every month, and like you with your podcast, you're meeting people that you would have never met, and I'm open to this whole new team of professionals, so I enjoy doing that. I do volunteer within my community. I am actually going this evening. You know, I talked a lot today about communication and conversation and body language, but we didn't talk about listening. And so I'm volunteering at the jail actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they have different type of community interactions, but I'm in something called just one-on-one. It's called spiritual direction, but basically you sit with somebody and you listen to their story. So I'm listening the whole time. And I think that's useful because not only are we collectively addicted to our phones, but we are so busy trying to say what we need to say. I'm not sure we're good listeners either. And you have to practice all the components of it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you about being a good listener. And I also have talked recently a lot about learning how to be a good receiver. You know, in the Bible, it says, blessed are those, it's better to give than to receive. And so everybody thinks they need to give, 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 give. But you have to learn how to graciously receive. Because if you just kind of blow it off or you say, well, thank you, and you are taking away the blessing of the person who's the giver. And you need to learn how to graciously receive, whether it's a present or a compliment or something that is makes you feel good instead of deprecating yourself. I mean, you need to learn to accept that. So that's another level of community interaction is learning how to receive.
That's a really good point because if you can be a good receiver, what are you doing? You're celebrating life. Like you said, you're celebrating the other person. And I
Right.
don't mean like gushing over them, but that's that's living, that's community. That is celebrating a moment and you're building memories and then that gives you humor and things to look back on and laugh at. I mean, it's we can get there. It is going to get better because it's really rough right now.
You know, you close your book with such hope, and I want to read this. It's so important. You said you do not have to be perfect. Be yourself. Enjoy the adventure of life. Falling is not failure. Failure is getting back up and keep going. How does that help to encourage people who are struggling to regain their health?
Because I think if you're struggling to regain your health, something's already happened. And so it's our perspective of what's happened. And we can learn through experiences. It's as good to know what to do as what not to do. And so our body is a self-healing machine, and we have to be grateful for what it does. We have to receive help from others. And it just keeps going and probably there I like this saying there's a lot of blessing in distress. Hard things happen to us, but at the other end when we look back there's a lot of blessings in that. A lot of creativity, newness, growth. So, not that we're wishing ill will on ourselves, but when we're in the worst moments, we do have to be kind to ourselves.
Yeah.
Definitely, like you said, negative self-talk. We do it a lot. And maybe that's part of just getting ready for worst case scenario, and that's our survivor mechanism. But yeah, there's always hope. There's always new experiences to come our way.
For sure. You know, and God never called anybody that he didn't purge with fire first. When you look at all of the characters all the way back into the Old Testament, the New Testament, there was a purging by fire that you had to be, burnished, up. If it's just everything is just easy and everything is just kind of going your way. I, um, I always think about people like that, like they need to be careful because one of these days God's going to call them into service and things are going to change. And suddenly everything that was going well may not go so well after that. And all of the leading up to that, the good positive health talk, the taking care of yourself, the sleeping, the movement, the nutrition has all gotten you prepared for what God is going to call you to do. I think that's really, really important. What would I think we've given your book and your curriculum a pretty good overview here today, but why should people add your particular book, to their personal library? Why should they lead it and put it into, why should they read it and put it into action?
First, because everybody's busy and it's a quick read. So it's set up for a 15-week curriculum, but you could read it in 3, 4 hours. And it brings you into a lot of discussion. So you can have conversations with friends, family. You can share the book with others and you can journal in it. So it's a good resource to have in your library because there's probably a lot of common sense in the book, and it's good to reaffirm what you're already doing right. And if there's a spark of curiosity and something to think differently about, then you're only better for it.
And what if you've got multiple teenagers? Should each one of them get their own book?
I think that each one should have their own book because you can write in it. But there's nothing wrong with sharing it. But Absolutely. I mean, the whole goal is to bring awareness. So, and I do think that the book has to be paper version. I don't think it would be as impactful if the book was digital because the teacher's guide is always going to be digital, and I think that is necessary. There's so many links that it wouldn't be worth printing it. But yeah, I think that every adult and teenager should have their own copy of the book.
And tell us about your website and how they can get hold of you and where your center is if somebody's close to you and wants to come in and be a client of yours.
Okay, so my business website is activecareptinc.com. That's my business website. And then the website is becomewholeyou.com. So that's become WHOLEYOU.com. And the easiest way is to contact me because I will not have the books printed until August for purchasing and shipping. So payment for the book isn't set up yet on my website. But I'm very interested in anybody that wants to reach out to me, especially in a homeschooling network, so that you could be a test study and the books and digital teacher's guide will be given to you.
Awesome. Well, Stephanie, it's been great to have this conversation with you and talk to you again. You know, we talked to you quite a while ago, I think, when you were in the process of still writing this book. And I think that it's really important to advocate for you to get this sort of material into the homeschooling network and to be building upon that. I think it's really, really important. So people can reach out to you and support you and get you connected with the Ohio Department of Health so we can get your stuff
Yes.
moving here. It would be really great.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate your time so much.
Well, with that, I want to close out with one of my favorite verses from the Bible. I close all my podcasts with, whether it is live or pre-recorded, which is Romans 12:12. Rejoice in hope, be patient in trouble, and be persistent in prayer. And two of my three-part devotional is out. The first one is rejoice in hope. The second one is be patient in trouble. And persistent in prayer is coming out after the first of the year. Remember to lean into God, trust Him for everything. You can get those books at bookstore.drtenpenny.com or on our website. So we will see you tomorrow or the next time right here on the Tenpenny Files. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Goodbye and God bless.